everything about method or functions, variable or argument invocation, like the argument or the parameter invocation. Watch this video till the end. I'm going to cover everything about that. So we will cover basically this. Let me share this slide. So first of all, a function can take arguments which can be used to invoke the code inside it and generate the output. So let's get first to the positional argument, which is pretty much common in Java. So for example, I have a method, I would a function. So we define as def, and then we say func is our function. Now we can define few parameters. I would say just a and b, and then what I'm going to do is I will print my a and b here. Now how we would invoke? So the super simple thing is we will call the we will pass the argument. Now first understand what's the difference between the argument and the parameter. So when we define this a and b here are basically the parameters, but when we invoke the function we pass the argument. So if I am passing the positional argument which does not match, you will get the error which you just saw it here. But if you satisfy the exact contract of that function, which means you pass or satisfy the arguments which are required, it would get invoked, and this is printing it here. So if you pass less number or more number in both the cases, you will end up with the error. And this is first thing. Second thing is there is a little variation in Python. You can always default a variable so that if the value is not being passed, that will be defaulted. And still, so there are three arguments, right? If you will pass three argument, this will be invoked because there are three, you pass three. But in case if you skip the third one, still it would work, because now when you don't pass it will be defaulted. This is called as the default argument. So when you do not pass that, it would take it as default. Now there is another variation of this, which is you can call, first we covered the positional argument, and you can always call it by name, which is called as the named argument, which means that you can do this same function call, and then you can call it by passing a is equal to whatever value, for example 5, and then b is equal to 12, and just invoke it, and this would work because see, you did not don't have to pass, it's a default. But if you want to interchange the values, that is fine too. So here we have interchanged the value, and we can also pass something here. So this is called as the named argument, and you can mix and match the named with the positional. But the caveat is you have to first pass the positional argument, then you can pass the named argument, which is for instance 7, and then you can pass the default, or you can just leave the default. This way also it would work. So Python is very flexible, that makes it easy, or on the other hand it makes it difficult to understand if you have to wrap up all things, because it does have a lot of sometime confusion as well. Now there is another thing, which is if you want to pass variable arguments, which means you don't predefine that you have three, you can say that you want to grab more than three. Now before doing that, let me show you. If I'll pass these more arguments, now you cannot pass the named argument before the positional argument. That is why you are getting the error, see here, right? So let's say if this is like this, and this would be invoked, but if you pass more, it would start filling. So is there a way to make it pass? Yes, there is a way, and you can just do a star, and then you can pass the args. So now what will happen, this same method would be invoked. See, so you can pass as many as positional arguments you want, that can be passed simply without the issue. But only we are printing it here, the one which are we define basically the formal arguments, what we say, or the formal parameters. But now whatever are the remaining are being called by this. That is basically, it creates a tuple, and whatever are the rest of the arguments, they would be taken care here. Same way, there is another thing. So what we saw is regular positional argument, we saw default arguments. Now we also saw the variable length positional argument. Now we will see the keyword arguments. Keyword argument is basically when you will pass a is equal to something, b is equal to something, and then we will pass the variable keyword argument. So keyword argument, for example, if I have to say c is equal to something, and then if I pass this won't work, right? So I have to pass whatever are the whatever are the first is positional argument, then second is I can pass any other argument, and then if I have to pass the positional argument, that also I can do. So for example, now I am doing this. So c's value would be taken from here and not 34. Let's see. So this guy is saying got multiple values for C, because C was being passed the default value or whatever is the positional value. So to make that correct, we might need to skip these values. Now C would get the correct value, which it does. But there are no other arguments. If you pass it, it will fail. Why? Because the rule says you have to first pass the positional arguments, and after that you can pass the keyword arguments. So let's say you have these keyword arguments. Now let's pass. So let's do try to pass more values here. And then instead of C, let's say this value is D. Now if you pass it, this is going to fail. Why? Because D is not defined. So what you will do here to make it variable, you would use double star, and then you do this. So first thing is it would take first positional arguments, default argument. If that's passed, like in the position, it would be the 4 value, and then whatever are the values, they would come here in the arguments, they would be printed, and at last it would take up the keyword argument, which is this. So we can print those keyword arguments will be, for example, d is equal to whatever, e is equal to whatever value you want to give. Now we can invoke this, and this is working fine. So that is how it is. Now you can pass, this is super flexible function, because you used all the concept here. You have positional arguments, then you have default arguments, then you have the keyword arguments, and then you also have the what we called as the variable length positional arguments. So thanks for watching, and if you have any question, leave it in the comment, in the feedback, what you like about this video, what you did not like about this video. Feel free to share your feedback and let me know what you want to see more. Thanks. Bye.